Good afternoon. This is Cohn and Krueger. That's Krueger. I'm Cohn. We haven't done our show in almost 2 weeks. Certainly haven't done a show since John Lynch spoke at Indianapolis. So I would really love to hear what Larry thinks of that very ominous, tepid discussion about Trey Lance from John Lynch. About Lance in particular. That was the one that raised the eyebrows the most, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, it raised my attention too. He's got to play. That's the challenge. He's the only quarterback you have. Why is it a challenge?
Why is it a challenge?
Where is the challenge? Where does the challenge lie? It begged a follow up of like, John, why is it such a challenge? He said he's got to play. That's the biggest challenge because we've got a team that's ready to go. The implication is that he needs to play, but he's not ready to go, needs development, and we're ready to go. It almost was like I read it like the next quarterback they sign will be not like a third string guy, but more like a starter or a back or number 2 guy, and that they may trade Trey Lance in the draft lead up or on draft day. I mean, that would scare the S out of me because even if you got what I would think is a fair package, I still think Trey Lance is going to be a really, really good quarterback down the road. It might not be this year, but I think this could go down as one of the worst trades in Niner history.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny, like he still hasn't gotten a chance, Trey. And I think locally there's real heavy comparisons between Trey Lance and James Wiseman. Still, there's even less data on Trey. James Wiseman, he had more games. He played in the summer league. Trey really hasn't played. And if they trade him for like a 3rd or 4th round pick or whatever it is, and he turns out to be good, I mean, it really is the dumbest decision they've ever made. It compounds the problem. So could they trade him this offseason? Yeah, I do. I think they're so encouraged. They're so like drunk on Brock Purdy right now that they could do it. They absolutely could. And you know what? If they feel like Brock Purdy isn't going to be ready for this year and they're not confident in Trey, then they could go out and sign Ryan Tannehill. You know, they could say like, you know what? Let's stop screwing around with quarterbacks. And in that sense, you know what? The Shanahans, Kyle and Mike, never really been known for developing young quarterbacks. So maybe Kyle has some self-awareness and says, Trey, I'm not the coach for you. I'm going to trade you to Indy. And I'm going to bring in a vet because that's who I am in my nature. What do you think?
I think it's
a little late for that, huh?
Possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's very possible. Well, because it just seems like otherwise I don't understand the whole quote from Lynch. He's ready to roll, but I mean we got a roster that's ready to roll, but he's got to play, and that's the challenge. That sounds like he's talking to another GM saying, hey, GM Rand Carthon. You know, if he's talking to Rand Carthon, hey, Rand, kid's got to play. We love him. We love him as a kid. We love him as a prospect, but he's got to play. And you know what? That's our biggest challenge because we're ready to win now. And we just have timelines that don't jive, but we think the world of him. It's basically like saying,
hey, Houston,
I'm not going to pump him up as our starter. I'm going to say to the media exactly the same thing that I'm saying basically behind the scenes to other GMs. And then I'm just going to probably take the best offer I can get on draft day. I mean, I that's what it sounds like to me. I mean, it doesn't sound, because he could have said he could have said, hey, you know what? Brock's got this injury and now Trey's going to actually get that window that we really need for him to, you know, get those reps with the first team. And we're really excited about what it's going to be this year. I mean, that's like a normal answer. Instead, it's like, well, you know, he's got to play, and that's the challenge. It's only a challenge if he's got to play and you're not going to let him play. Right?
Exactly.
Am I missing something here?
No, I mean,
where's the challenge?
They have the opportunity to let him play. Like, it's in their control. So I'm with you. It did kind of sound like he was talking about Trey Lance in the past, and they're like, look, you know, we wanted to develop Trey the way Philly developed Jalen Hurts, but he got hurt, and we've missed 2 years, and the project is behind schedule, and now we have Brock Purdy, and we're just giving up. So you know what? We acknowledge finally that we're a bad fit for Trey Lance. He's a bad fit for us. We'll trade him to Houston. I mean, he could play forever in Houston, right? There's a lot of places he could play. And maybe there are certain teams that have 2 first-round picks this year, Detroit, Seattle, that say, instead of drafting Anthony Richardson in the top 10, maybe I could trade my later first-round pick for Trey Lance. I don't know if the Niners get a first-round pick for Trey Lance, but maybe certain teams could think of it that way. Instead of drafting one of these guys in the top 10, I could get Trey Lance later. And Trey Lance was a top 3 pick, and he's only 22. Go down like that.
And
it could happen on the first day of the league years. That way the Niners could go out and sign Ryan Tannehill. Sorry, just to finish my
I also think there's a bunch of guys who understand that Trey is not your just normal middle of the road kind of prospect as a person, that he is high level person. And that would say, the assumption is that, man, he hasn't done it to this point. His value is a fraction of what it was. I don't buy that at all. This is a very small world. Your reality becomes known all around the pro personnel world. And the reality is that Trey needs to play, and Trey's a great kid and is worth investing in. And it's still kind of a question mark at this point, but he's still a great prospect. It's not like all of a sudden he's like,
right.
Right.
Like
Zach Wilson might not be a great prospect. His entire team of guys wore the t-shirt of their backup quarterback. He kind of lost the room.
Right.
Maybe he's lost the ability to lead an NFL locker room. He might be devalued, but Trey, I don't think has lost. Trey's very popular in the room with the players. I just think that I think John said it. He needs to play. And what the implication is that because they need to win, that they can't go through the bumps in the road with Trey.
Well, I mean, they're coming off 2 straight NFC Championship game appearances. I'll give him that. And the idea was entering year 3 with Trey Lance that he would have 15, 20, 25 starts under his belt, and he'd be ready to do what Jalen Hurts did last year. Well, that's not what happened. He got hurt. They messed around. They didn't handle this correctly. 4 starts in his career. They might feel like, look, I mean, if Brock's not ready, we really can't turn this team over to a de facto rookie who hasn't had success. Then that's their fault. But if that's how they feel, then trade him now, as soon as the league year starts, and draft and sign someone, the best quarterback available that they can afford, who I think would probably be Ryan Tannehill. Can fit the system, has played in play action systems before, has never had this much talent, but it's freaking Ryan Tannehill. How good is Ryan Tannehill really? He's 34 years old. I mean, is that like the Rams adding Matthew Stafford? Not really. I wouldn't say so.
Here's the other question. Just because the 49ers appear to either, I don't want to say they don't believe in Trey, because that's putting way too much importance in this oddly phrased combine speech or whatever. But if they are moved off of Trey, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're putting all their eggs in Brock's basket.
True.
They've been doing this for a while. What's going to happen with Rodgers? I just saw Saleh basically make it sound like Carr's going to the Jets. Where's Rodgers going to go?
Right.
I mean, I could definitely see the 49ers trying to go get Rodgers, because the one thing we don't know is Grant, how much urgency there is behind the scenes in Niner land on Lynch and Shanahan to climb to the top of the mountaintop with this group and get this ring. Are they all in? Are they super passionate about it? And they want to take a, big bite after Aaron Rodgers, who's and maybe give, because I could see them looking Trey's family in the face and saying, hey, guess what?
We're going to do right by you.
We're going to put you in a great spot. We're going to send you to Green Bay.
Yeah, we don't want to hold you hostage. We love you, man.
And
sorry.
we don't want to put you in some terrible outpost.
Right.
We're going to hand you to a respected franchise.
Minnesota.
Right there in your
Green
backyard.
Bay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then also they can look Trey in the eye and say, you know what? It didn't work for us, but we did right by Trey and we hand delivered him. I don't even know who I wouldn't make that trade. I wouldn't trade Trey for Rodgers. That's how good I think Trey's going to be down the road. But I kind of think they would.
I think they would too. And again, we're talking about the Shanahans here. And the only time Mike and Kyle have had real success is when they inherited great quarterbacks, MVP level quarterbacks. Mike won with Steve Young and John Elway, and then messed around with a bunch of mid-level quarterbacks after that, never had the same level of success. Kyle inherited Matt Ryan, almost won a Super Bowl. If he had Aaron Rodgers, it just might work. If he had Tom Brady, it just might work. Ryan Tannehill, not quite on that level. But I think that's what Kyle needs to realize is like the reason it works with Brock is Brock is like the 22-year-old veteran. He has all the little things down. He needs
You can
no
process
development.
everything, yeah.
He needs no development. Like that's perfect for Kyle. So if he could get Aaron Rodgers, great. If he could convince Tom Brady to come out of retirement, great. I think Matt Ryan's a little bit past his prime. I think it's enough.
No
Please
Matt Ryan.
No Matt Ryan. I'm intrigued by Marcus Mariota, but again, if what you're saying is career, if what you're saying is correct, and they're looking for more than a backup, they're looking for like a legit starter, and they're trying to trade Trey, then it's not going to be Mariota. It's going to be someone like Tannehill.
Well,
who would you? If they trade Trey, who's it going to be? Not.
I like Mariota more than Tannehill. I don't like Tannehill. I mean, I'm an A&M fan. I saw Tannehill as a wide receiver converted to a quarterback. He's got athletic traits, but man, I think he lost confidence in that 3-pick playoff game a couple years ago. I don't think he's the same guy since that 3-pick playoff game. I don't think he's viewed the same in the room by the guys. I don't think they view him. I don't know. He's athletic though, and he's a good guy. He's a high character guy.
But it happens to quarterbacks. No one can look at you the same
Wentz?
after that.
Where's Wentz going to go?
Wentz is interesting. I mean, he always plays well against the 49ers. He's not as good as he was before he tore his ACL, obviously, but holds the ball too long. I don't know. It seems like he'd be the kind of guy who'd be sailing passes over Christian McCaffrey's head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's him. He can't hit the freaking check down. Other than that, great quarterback. I don't think they'll go for him. Well, I mean, people seem to really dislike him. I know. I would still go with Mariota. I think Mariota's quick. I thought he was the player of the week against the Niners. And I know the Niners were missing guys, but the Falcons suck. They have no one. And he diced them up, and he ran for like 50 yards. He was really good in that game. So I would give it a chance.
So if they get Mariota, to me, it's going to add to the speculation until they say otherwise that they may move Trey during the draft. Because Mariota, complained about battling, Desmond Ridder this year. And, you think now he's going to come here and be third string? Now, I do think...
Well, hold on. Let's talk logistics. If the Niners want to trade Trey, don't you do that before you sign another quarterback? Because if you sign Mariota or Tannehill, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, well, they're going to get rid of Trey. Doesn't his value go down at that point? Would you want to trade him first?
Well, that's a good point.
Or if you trade him first, then you have no quarterbacks.
I think you don't want to trade Trey until you know what was the scope of Brock's injury. So do you have a Brock? And then B,
do you have someone else?
Do you have somebody else? But maybe if you worked it out with somebody else, you could have a contract that fluctuated or it could be incentive laden based on appearances. I like Mariota though. I thought the way Mariota ran that RPO game in the short yardage was exactly what I would want from Trey Lance. It's like if he just copied that, I think that would be that worked. I mean, the Falcons beat the Niners. People remember that game.
They beat them up 28-14.
Yeah.
I mean, the Niners really couldn't stop the Falcons
or whatever.
Absolutely. People are like, oh, the Niners are missing guys. Who the Falcons have? Name 3 people on the Falcons.
Yeah.
3. All right. Corey Soto says, Lombardi says Purdy is getting surgery next week. Did I miss something? Why is no one else credible reporting or supporting this? I don't think it's been 100% determined yet. He still has, I think he's probably meeting today with the Dr.
No,
Meister.
I think Lombardi's just going off of the what Lynch said in Indy. He said that Dr. Meister had delayed the surgery, that he basically admitted that it was Meister's call, that the Niners weren't a huge fan of it. But then obviously the fact that the kid's 23, they want to do right by him long term. Yeah. And then he kind of confirmed that in the dialogue, I thought, that the surgery was going to happen this week. So I think Dave's just repeating that. That's that was my read on it.
Dustin the Gale says, how do the fans react if Trey Lance traded? I'd be mad. That's interesting too, because I do feel like a big reason that Trey Lance is on the team and Mac Jones is because the fans push so hard for Trey Lance. I mean, they were getting ready to be so angry about Mac Jones. If they just get rid of Trey Lance and trade him for a 3rd-round pick and wash their hands of him, that would be a pretty controversial move locally. Not every fan would be. A lot of people be pretty pissed about that, Larry, don't you think?
Yes.
I would. I mean,
yes.
And they never gave him a chance.
I love Kyle Shanahan. I think the highly of John Lynch. I'm very pro this regime, but they lose tons of face. If they trade this guy for a 3rd-round pick after the little amount of sample size of game action that he actually saw, there's going to be quite a bit of criticism, and it's not going to come it's going to be coming from all corners unless they somehow trade. I mean, even if they trade him for Aaron freaking Rodgers, who's a Hall of Famer who went to Cal and wore a Joe Montana t-shirt under his jersey, that's still, you're still going to be trading the future for the present. Come on, man. There's going to be some explaining.
Before Brock Purdy tore his UCL, I was sort of on board with trading Trey Lance. I was thinking, look, man, this guy might not be Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, but he's looking really good and the offense works with him. But then he tore his UCL. I'm like, hold on. The Niners need to keep all their options on the table right now.
Right.
They can't just, they have to. All of a sudden, they got to see it through with Trey Lance. And what I keep saying is, look, the Niners didn't know what they get credit for drafting Brock Purdy, but they didn't essentially know. They didn't watch him in training camp and be like, oh man, this guy is the best quarterback on our roster. They didn't say that. They were like, no, he's better than Nate Sudfeld. We'll give him a chance. And then when he got in the game, they were like, wow, he's amazing. Well, maybe you can't really evaluate quarterbacks in practice. Maybe you got to give Trey Lance a month of playing without him getting hurt playing running back. That's just a thought before you write him off or make any judgments.
And it's set up perfectly for that to happen if they just do nothing. I mean, think about it. If John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan don't do a thing, it's set up for Trey to probably play in September. And what if in September he throws 12 touchdowns and no picks and they go 4-0? Then what happens in October? I think they're probably sticking with Trey at that point.
I would think so. Corey Soto says only quarterback semi-healthy. 1, only quarterback semi-healthy on roster, no system and players. 2, 3 first, and third, and $30 million. 4 games. 3 will never get close to that back. 4, $11 million in dead cap. Get out of here with this narrative. Yeah, I don't. And also, they never traded Jimmy. They held on to Jimmy forever, even though it seemed like Kyle kind of wrote him off back in 2019. I mean, he worked around him. He's been working around Jimmy Garoppolo for years, but they held on to him and held on to him. And I don't think they ever.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just thinking about this not from the Niner perspective. I was thinking about this more from Rodgers'
Trey's perspective.
Like,
Roger.
You know what I mean? Because I'm like, he ain't going to the Jets. I don't think it doesn't sound like he's going to the Raiders. It's like, where's Rodgers going to go?
If the Niners trade for Rodgers, Niner fans will not be pissed. They'll say, Trey, good luck. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. If the Niners get Rodgers.
Do you think Rodgers politically is kind of going to, they don't care about Bosa's
Niner fans root for Bosa. Niner fans root for Bosa. No. They would throw a parade for Rodgers the day he got here. Let's be honest. Come on.
I think Shanahan's best chance to win is probably Rodgers this year. If you said they got Trey, they can go with Trey, they can go with Brock, they can go with Rodgers. I don't know how you make it all happen. But if they could go with any of those 3 guys, and you said, bet you can put everything you have in the world on one guy partnering with Kyle Shanahan this year and winning the Super Bowl. I'm going with Rodgers.
Obviously Rodgers. And again,
it's Rodgers.
Mike won with 38-year-old Elway. Kyle could win with 38-year-old Rodgers. And in Mike's case, Elway was not the focal point of that offense. Who was it, Larry?
TD, Terrell Davis.
TD! Well,
he's in the
same kind of setup over here.
Roger Craig, and that's not right.
Which kind of
got like
disgusting.
Over 2,000 more all-purpose yards. Career.
Yeah. Jalen LeGrant says Taylor Heineke would be a good pickup. He's solid. And CB should be team's priority in draft. Cornerback. Also, kicker, want to downgrade if we lose Gold. That's true. We're not talking about kicker, but that's like a legit need for the Niners this year. Kicker.
They didn't. Was the franchise deadline come and gone? Or is that
I don't think the deadline's gone. I think it's opened, but I don't know if the deadline's gone.
They can still franchise Robbie Gold. Would you?
Man.
I mean, he made 4.8. The franchise for the kicker's 5.4. I'd be willing to give him a upgrade from 4.8 to 5.4. Instead of having a, roll the dice kicker year, Robbie Gold, I think is worth.
No, I think they should sign Brett Maher.
Yeah, Brett Maher. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Or where's Cody Parkey? The double doink.
Right. The double doinker. Mark Salas says if Brock's elbow turns out to be more serious, Brady will come out of retirement. No. Also, don't rule that out. He did it last year.
The one thing that I'm seeing with these quarterbacks, Grant.
Yeah.
I just pulled my headsets out again. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
There we go. I'm back.
There you go.
Is that both Rodgers and Brady, it's like older quarterbacks get to that point where they don't want to take a hit more than they want to stay on the
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's like when you don't want to take a hit more than you want to stay on the field, you know,
That's true.
I
On
think
the other
good
hand,
for the
though, maybe
Padres.
Kyle Shanahan needs a quarterback like that because Kyle Shanahan can't keep his quarterbacks on the field. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Niners equals T. McClellan Sharks. Will they get it done?
Todd McClellan.
Todd McClellan Sharks. Oh man, we're cross sports
I
references.
can't go there on the Todd McClellan. I'm
Manny
blinded. My I don't know enough McClellan.
Manny Fresh says name a quarterback any Shannon ever developed, dad included. That's not what they do. It's really not what they do. But they have. I mean, Kyle went
I
pretty far
mean,
with Matt Ryan.
Steve Young developed under Mike Shanahan. He definitely did. But he
He
was
developed,
29.
but he was already like, yeah. That's
He's
what I'm saying.
29. So I
Yeah, and
mean,
people say
but
Kirk Cousins,
if
but
Steve were sitting here, he would say
for
Mike
sure,
helped develop me.
absolutely.
So,
And I'm sure Matt Ryan would say that about Kyle, but it's a different kind of development. It feels more like graduate level development than like
right.
101. You know what I mean? Fish and Chip says a Super Bowl caliber coach doesn't have his players telling him I got your back or telling him run the ball to win playoff games, one step behind always. That was kind of strange against Dallas. That whole thing about Juszczyk telling him, "Hey, stop being so cute." That's a good story though. Fish and Chip says a Super Bowl caliber coach allows quarterback to audible on the line. That would be interesting. If Rodgers comes here, there would have to be some concessions made from Kyle or Rodgers.
I think it would be from Kyle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. Dustin the Gale says, would it feel cheap if they won the Super Bowl with Rodgers? I respect the Chiefs for winning with Mahomes more than I do Tampa Bay winning with Brady. Would it feel
That's
cheap?
interesting.
Probably in a sense, but I don't think Niner fans would care. Maybe other fans would care.
Yeah, here's the question. Do Niner fans, do you have less meaning in Super Bowl 29 than you did in the other ones? Because Super Bowl 29 was the Carmen Policy team that had Richard Dent, Ricky Jackson. That was an all-star team.
Deion Sanders,
Plummer, Norton. These guys were all bought from other spots.
Yep.
I would say no, it doesn't matter over time.
Jalen LeGrant says Niners going to draft. Hold on. Todd Labor says, I'll shake my head if they trade Trey Lance. They might regret it. He can turn out great somewhere else. You don't know what you got till it's gone. That's an old Cinderella song. Sign the Maryland kicker also. No, again, if I were another team listening to John Lynch, I'd call him up. Be like, John, I'll give you a second. Indy should be all over this. Shane Steichen, I would do that.
Cinderella? I mean, that's a long to. They were jamming back in the day.
Jalen LeGrand says Niners going to draft Stetson Bennett. You can book it. We're going to talk about all the different positions.
Stetson Bennett.
He did get arrested recently.
Wait a second. Isn't Stetson Bennett the guy who got arrested and pulled this thing down over his hoodie down?
Because Mac Jones got all in trouble, but he was like 19. Stetson Bennett's like 25. It's a bad sign. His guy's like looking a little Johnny Manziel right now. All right.
Am I following you? I'm following you on Twitter. Did you put out Mac Jones is going to be traded?
No, I retweeted it. Someone else, Marco said it, but it seems like probably not. Oh. I mean, they brought in Bill O'Brien. I'm thinking not. They met with Anthony Richardson at the draft, but they meet with quarterbacks all the time. All right. Adam Peters recently did an interview and spoke about the deepest positions in the draft in his opinion. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's great news for the Niners if he is handicapping it right. And I kind of agree with his assessment based on just perusing the players, like watching tons of college football. I don't know every single player in the draft, but just knowing a bunch of them, I think he's, based on what I've seen, I think he's right on the money. That there's a ton of D tackles, there's a ton of defensive linemen of all shapes and sizes, a lot of rushers, a lot of edge rushers, a lot of really exciting defensive linemen of all shapes and sizes. And there's a lot of really, really intriguing stud tight ends. And the Niners kind of need, like among their needs are D tackle, edge rusher, and more dynamic playmaking behind Kittle at tight end, I think. And I could easily see them drafting 5 or 6 guys that play one of those 3 positions. And the fact that they're super loaded in the draft is great news.
Niners are always trying to draft defensive linemen. So I guess it's good news. And I think they really want to upgrade that tight end spot. I think maybe I'm cynical, but they always scapegoat one person for their loss. And 2 years ago, it was Tart. It was Tart's fault. And I think this year it's Croft. Croft, what were you thinking? Come on! So I think that if only we had a better tight end number 2, we would have won this game. Like, all right. So maybe they're going to make that a priority. Fine. There are some really good tight ends this year, and the Niners really haven't. That's like the one position they haven't tried to address at all since Kyle's gotten here. They lucked out. They didn't luck out, but they lucked out with Kittle in round 5. And since then, they drafted 2 guys in round 6, cut one immediately, signed Jordan Reed at the end of his career, hung on to Ross Dwelley for no reason, never used him. It's like they really don't value the position, even though it's extremely important and they're a play-action, run-first team. They should draft one of those guys this year.
It's a weird, if you really think about it, it's a weird deal. In some ways, they really value the position. They've kept 4 tight ends on the roster at times.
Yeah.
So they really do prioritize it on the cut down. They just don't prioritize it on in the draft. Croft was a free agent. Werner, as you said, late day 3 pick, and Dwelley was an undrafted free agent. So, but yeah, they need talent there. They need talent.
If you think about it too, tight end might be one of the most underrated positions in the NFL. For whatever reason, they don't get paid like wide receivers, but some of them produce like wide receivers. They're big. They add value in the blocking game. I mean, if you have a good one, that's a cornerstone player on your franchise. Like George Kittle, when he's healthy, is a cornerstone player in a franchise who's frankly underpaid. As opposed, and tight ends are hard to find as opposed to wide receivers, where every year they're like, oh, this is a great draft for wide receivers. There's like 25 wide receivers who could go in the top 100 picks. This year seems like an unusually rare, good draft for tight ends. Don't miss it. Don't pass on it. Yeah.
Or even just the jumbo receiver that has great ball skills now could be. I mean, what's Juwan Jennings?
Thank you.
Juwan Jennings is a big receiver.
He's a tight end.
With awesome ball skills. He's kind of like a movement tight end.
Yeah. He blocks well enough. I mean, he's not a super strong blocker, really, but with Jordan Reed was 235 pounds. So what? He wasn't blocking better than Juwan Jennings at 215. 215 Juwan Jennings has more fight than Jordan Reed at 235.
Yeah. Jordan Reed, was pretty bulked up in camp though. We saw it.
Yeah, he was.
He was Jacked. But yeah, it was a lot of like upper body, like lifting, a lot of buys and tries. He had huge arms. But yeah, I mean, you look at they need to go tight end, and maybe one of the best tight ends I've ever seen. I think is Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame prospect. I think he's tremendous. I absolutely would, if you could make a trade and somehow get into 15 to 20 range, geez, I mean, Michael Mayer he's a Gronk and a Kittle and a Kelsey all rolled into one, man. He's terrific.
That would be nice. There was one comment real quick. Hold on. It's from Manny Fresh. I've been saying Rodgers since 05, make it right. Yeah, the Niners are never going to be able to undo their mistake of missing on Patrick Mahomes, but they could. Man, it would be really funny to bring back Aaron Rodgers after all these years. It's been a long time.
Seriously, and he's probably still playing well enough to get it done. I mean, look at the NFC. The NFC is, Philly's going to have 2 number 1s, but they also have a bunch of free agents and not a lot of cap room. So, I mean, there's no roster in the NFC. There's no team. There's no storm clouds formulating in the NFC that I can see as far as a team that's like, look at them. They're over there building. No, I don't see it.
Did you know that the Niners messed up when they drafted Alex Smith and passed on Aaron Rodgers? Like the day it happened, did you know they messed up?
Yeah. Yes. I can tell you the story of it. I was in the war room doing a broadcast on KMBR, and I literally put my head on the table. Yeah. And Agnew's like, Craig, what are you doing? I'm like, you don't understand, Bob. They just absolutely gagged this.
Yeah.
Come on. It's a new regime. Give him a break.
We watched Aaron Rodgers. The Bay Area, I saw him in person. You saw him in person.
Yeah.
What did he go, 21 for 22 against USC?
In like 107-degree day at the Coliseum, and he was like 15 of 16 or something like that.
Who was he throwing to? Like, Burl Toller? He was throwing to guys from my high school.
Yeah.
No offense to guys from my high school.
Rodgers had done it in the Pac-12, and from what happened there was that Rodgers told Rodgers told the Niners that he wanted to play for them and that he would take a hometown discount.
Yeah.
And then Tom Condon came in. He was the agent for Alex Smith. He had read the room that the Yorks were being called cheap at that point in history, and they were really all about not being cheap. And so he came out, did not talk to the Niners first, went public and said that Alex Smith, if he goes number one, wants record setting money, made it a referendum on cheapness.
Oh wow.
And then the
Smart.
Niner organization didn't have any conviction on the quarterback, had a deal
Right.
worked out with Tampa for a bunch of draft picks. I think Tampa had 2 threes and anyway, when Tampa then took Cadillac Williams at 5, that's when the Niners decided, okay, we'll stay with Alex Smith. They had
Also,
a
I
deal
think the
worked out.
Yorks I think the Yorks subconsciously like young, like very respectful, mature uh, players when they take them in the top 10. Trey Lance, Mike McGlinchey, Solomon Thomas. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a jerk and a half. And I think it's possible that they were like, you know what? We don't like this guy. Alex Smith is just the nicest guy. I mean, aw shucks. He's phenomenal.
He's
Aaron
like,
Rodgers is not.
yeah.
No.
Rodgers, I mean, Rodgers,
He's a jerk.
you know, is much more cocky.
Oh,
Alex Smith is like the guy you hope your daughter marries.
yeah. It's a whole different thing. Bunny Side Up says Dalton Schultz in free agency or nah. He's going to get paid. He's a good player. I don't think they can afford him.
Yeah. You got to draft. There's a great bunch of guys in this draft. I mean, a bunch of tight ends that are really, really good.
Tell the good people who watch this show what Quincy Avery said about Trey Lance recently.
Well, he says the 49er organization has someone who's really special. Jordan Elliott has this long breakdown on Niners Nation. And, he's talking about Trey. He says Trey's just starting to get off of rehab. He's starting to throw to his full throwing regimen, being able to take his drops and throws. We'll be getting together pretty soon here. So I'm just here to help, trying to get him back in a rhythm, throwing comfortably and doing things the right way. And then he said, I think people got an opportunity to see some flashes in the Bears game. The weather is what it is. However, you still started to see some things. You saw the deep over. You saw all those things that he can do as a passer. I think everyone knows he's going to be tremendous running with the football, but he's going to continue to evolve in the passing game, do a better job in terms of his timing and the rhythm of his drops. The more reps he gets, the better he's going to play. And I think people are going to be reminded of why he was the number 3 pick overall in the draft. He's one of the most positive guys. Trey is one of the most positive guys I've ever had the opportunity to be around. He's just singing his praises here for sure. But, I think people need to be reminded, that Trey Lance, is a phenomenal prospect. And, to trade him would be risky at this point, to say the least. But it sounded like John Lynch was intimating that that's what I got out of it, that he was intimating that at least that's a possibility.
Yeah. I just want to Quincy Avery's point, like, it may never work out with Trey with the Niners, but they're not going to be in a position to get a quarterback as talented as him for a very long time. Nothing against Brock Purdy. He may be their guy, but there's a difference. And if they get rid of Trey Lance, they're going to be bringing in someone in their mid-30s who will have a year or two left, who frankly doesn't have the full skill set that Trey Lance has. Doesn't mean he's a good quarterback. But if they want to really swing for the fences with someone who's got the full skill set at a young age, this is their guy. There's no one else. This is it. If you want to really swing for the fences, give it a shot. Find a way to give this project a shot before you abort it before it even gets started. It's too bad. It shouldn't come to that. I think it's like a no-brainer. When you've given up 3 first-round picks in a third, you shouldn't have to tell you this. You should want to at least see this through at a certain point. Like, even the Warriors didn't give up 3 first-round picks for James Wiseman. The Niners are even more invested in Trey Lance than the Warriors were in James Wiseman. Give him a 5th game. Start him week 1.
I don't feel comfortable. If John Lynch asked me, what do you think? I would say I'd be intrigued by what you could get, because if you're really committed to going with Brock, you want to surround him with the best team. But you could look so bad, and I believe so much in this kid that I don't think I would be willing to trade Trey at this point. Now, the 2 quotes here that are just have to be stated. from Quincy Avery. He says, Trey is one of the most positive guys that have ever had the opportunity to be around. He's honestly one of the best people, hardest working, most prepared guys that have ever had an opportunity to be around on a day-to-day basis. I think that him being in the offense with Kyle Shanahan, the things that they're going to ask him to do, his personality and his work ethic, he's going to be a perfect match for that. And then he went into detail about how meticulous Lance has been in his preparation for this upcoming off-season work that he's doing with Avery. He said, just thinking about some of the things we're doing this off-season, I've never seen somebody have such a robust list of things they want to work on and improve on. He's really difficult on himself. I think that is something that should be cherished. Someone who is that hard on themselves, that critical of themselves, and someone who is on such a pursuit of greatness. He cares so much about the game, cares so much about his ability as a quarterback. Those things are what make him who he is as a quarterback. So, I mean, this just tells me everything, Grant, that I kind of know about the kid, which is that this is the right person. He today may not be the right quarterback, but it's a process. And as long as they are patient with the process, I think there's, gold at the end of this rainbow. I really do.
I just don't understand how they went from last year being like, Trey's our guy, Trey's our guy, Trey's our guy. Jimmy, we don't even want him to practice. Brock, he's a nice little third string quarterback, maybe a backup in the future, but Trey's our guy. Then he breaks his ankle, and a year later, the Niners are like, yeah, that just didn't work out. Hold on, that doesn't make any sense. It seems like you guys totally changed your tune. Why? I mean, it was a fluke injury that happened, right? I mean, people break bones all the time, right? I mean, don't you want to see what he is before you trade him? It seems like this is very interesting. Either Quincy Avery is pumping him up for the 49ers or pumping him up for the next team. I don't know.
It is interesting. And Avery also says, Grant, that the people who are doubting Lance, he says, hey, I think that can be fair criticism just because you haven't seen him play enough. But the 49ers are getting one of the hardest working, most talented guys I've ever had the opportunity to be around. And I've been around some great ones. The 49er organization has someone who's really special. So, yeah, he's pumping him up. The question is why? Is he pumping him up because he really believes it and he's trying to warn the 49ers don't trade this guy? Or is he an agent for the Niners pumping him up so they can get a great return in a trade? I don't know.
Jalen says, should have drafted Watson in 17. Thomas was a bust. Watson?
Mr. You're never
knowing what we know now
under this towel.
Knowing what we know now, and the other quarterback who was also in that draft, Fish and Chip says, keep Kyle out of the war room, leave him at home. I wonder if the Niners getting rid of all their top 100 picks is just a way to disinterest Kyle. Like, look, Kyle, we don't need your help. These are all late picks. We got this. Please don't.
Well, they did.
Help.
Didn't they leave the whole coaching staff at home at the combine?
They did. Yeah. Thanks, guys. RWJ all day says if Trey needs to play him in the preseason and in games, they have had the lead since they have a Super Bowl window. Remember, I was talking about this in 2021, but they were like on a stretch in October where they were blowing teams out in Jacksonville, and they still wouldn't put Trey Lance in to do anything at the end of games. And I was saying, like, why, Kyle? And he was like, well, you never know if you're going to lose. Like, come on, what are you talking about? That's what I said. I didn't actually say that. It's easier to save face on a bad move if they cut bait before anyone knows what Trey is. Front office can just move on and make everyone else forget they scared. Not if it ends up being good, though.
That is interesting. I agree with that line. It's easier to save face on a bad move if maybe it's somebody else's problem if you turn them into something else. I don't know. Interesting.
All right. So the combine's going on right now. The defensive players have been running and doing drills. The offensive players are coming up. I'm a little more interested in the offense, at least today. So let's go through some positions. I know you're always super prepared. Give me one or two guys, whoever you got, who you think should be on the Niners' radar. Either in the Niners have those 3 picks, 99, 101, 102, right over there at the end of round 3, and then they have later picks. Wherever you think they should be interested, or if you wanted to find a way to trade
on either side of the ball, you mean? Or
I'll give you a position. Okay. Anywhere in the offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line's really hard. Because I value just pure toughness and intelligence. You gotta you go formation variation. There's all kinds of shifts and motions. If you play offensive line for the 49ers, you got to be smart. And so you got to find guys who are smart and tough and productive. I haven't studied a lot of them. The Northwestern kid, Skaronski, who's going to be a mid-first round pick, is tremendous. I mean, I
Mm,
really like him a lot. And then I really like Broderick Jones, the Georgia kid who's 6'4", 315 pounds, but I think he's probably going in the 20s. So those
okay.
guys are off the board. Darnell Wright from Tennessee, 6'5", 335, redshirt junior. He could be there, middle of the second round. Jalen Duncan from Maryland might be there in the third round. There's a guy named Peluski who plays for the Illini, who I think is more of a day 3 pick, but I think he's tough. So I mean, and I haven't studied all these guys, but those are the guys that stand out to me.
The ones I'm looking at that I'm curious to see how they test are Oluwatimi from Michigan, supposed
Yes,
to be
love
a,
him
a
too. The
mid-round
center.
guy.
Yep.
Luke Whippler from Ohio State, and Alex Forsyth from Oregon. And I saw this online today from Josh Norris, who's really smart. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah.
He posted that it like offensive linemen who basically scored like 4.5 on the 20-yard short shuttle or faster just tend to have really long careers. And so that's something to look for. Guys who are big and move well in the 20-yard shuttle, it seems to be somewhat predictive. And if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who have that great offensive line, it's a lot of guys who hit that number or close to it. So that'd be something I'm looking for, that 20-yard shuttle for the big guys.
I really love the Michigan kid, Oluwatimi. I mean, he won the Outland Trophy. He's really strong, short area. See, that's the other thing. I mean, it's like if you saw the numbers this year on Brock Purdy's completion percentage in it when he was kept clean as opposed to a
Mm-hmm.
muddied pocket,
Mm-hmm.
he was like 84% completion percentage when they kept him clean. I think Brendel's more like 285 in that range. Oluwatimi's like 310, 315, really, really strong. I mean, protecting that A gap against, for either quarterback, really. The fastest way to have a quarterback lose confidence is pressure right in his face. And I'd like to see them replace Brendel in the draft with a bigger bodied physical center that gives you more in the run game and a little bit more heft between your quarterback and opposing T tackles, especially since if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have to neutralize the great Chris Jones. So I mean that he's there and he ain't going anywhere.
Jake Brendel is an excellent athlete, but to your
Yeah,
point, he's a
he
little
is.
light. He's a little light. It'd be nice if you could get those movement skills in someone who's 310 pounds or 305. I'm with you on that. All right, what about tight ends? This is a deep position, a talented position in the draft, and the Niners desperately need an upgrade over Tyler Kroft, someone who can take some pressure off of George Kittle. Who do you like?
Well, there's a lot of guys here. It's really I can see now why Peters is saying it. First of all, Michael Mayer's a total stud, mid first round pick, Notre Dame kid, 6'4", 260, 270 in that range. Great receiver, unbelievable hands. I mean, that guy's special. Then Bill Musgrave's nephew, played at Oregon State. He's a great athlete, 6'6", 250, runs really well. Luke Musgrave. If you watch Utah this year, Dalton Kincaid, really solid receiver. He's more like in the 240 range, more of a receiver. Sam Laporta, Iowa. I mean, Iowa produces, as we know, really good tight ends, and Laporta's another one. He's 6'4", he's 250. He knows how to block. He's good. He's a good receiver. He's a nice all-around player. Darnell Washington from Georgia is like maybe the freakiest guy. He's 6'6", he's 265, he's lean. I mean, he's really lean. He looks like a kind of guy who could play at like 280. He's got that kind of, he's got unbelievable talent. And then there's a couple sleeper guys. Payne Durham from Purdue is 6'5", 260, really good receiver, sticky hands. And then I really liked there's a gigantic tight end named Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion. He's like 6'8", 250, but he's a good receiver and he really moves naturally like a much smaller guy, kind of like the guy was it Jimmy Graham, who was 6'8". This
Mm.
guy kind of he's not Jimmy Graham as far as a speedster, but he's a big target and he's a pretty good inline blocker. Zach Kuntz. And there's a bunch of guys beyond that as well, but those are the guys that I like the most.
Did you mention Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State?
No, I haven't seen him.
He's supposed to be similar to Dallas Goedert, supposed to be a good route runner, inconsistent blocker. I wonder if Kyle's going to be looking for more of a blocking type tight end, or it seems like the tight ends he's drafted have been serious blockers. Kittle, Warner, Caden Smith from Stanford. I don't know. I wonder if he's going to value. I mean, if he values blocking in his wide receivers, it seems like his tight end's going to have to be one hell of a blocker, right?
Well, I'll get then another name that you should keep in mind is the Michigan tight end, Luke Schoonmaker,
Okay.
because Michigan ran the ball with Blake Corum really well this year, and Schoonmaker is a terrific blocker. And he's 6'6", 250, 255, and he's just a he's a really smart kid. I think he's from Connecticut. And he's just one of those guys. He's kind of tenacious. He's like a lock-on blocker. And I think he could be.
See,
like
that sounds right up the Niners' alley to me, because they talk a big game about tight ends, but they still haven't drafted one ahead of round 5 since freaking Vance McDonald. So, Blake Bell, round 4
with the Belldozer.
The Belldozer. Yeah, it's been that long. So maybe they'll go round 4 this year with Schoonmaker. I think that would be a great pick. That's a good one. I like that.
Luke Schoonmaker, yeah.
Luke Schoonmaker. All right. Running backs on the Niners radar. I know we scoff, but Kyle Shanahan can't help himself. He's drafted running backs in round 3 2 years in a row. They go through running backs. They got 3 third-round picks this year. They got 1 million picks after that. Who are some running backs in that range that you like?
It's just an awesome group. I mean, this is another really great position. I don't think the Niners go running back in round 1, 2, or they don't have a 1 or 2, but I don't think they go running back on day 1 or day 2. I think
they shouldn't.
I think
they will.
I mean, like Bijan Robinson, I think Jerry Jones is all about getting Bijan Robinson from Texas.
Oh yeah.
And then the fastest kid in the draft is this Devin Kane from A&M, but he's a 5'8" guy. Jameer Gibbs is awesome from Bama.
I like him.
He played with J.P. Mason at G-Tech.
Yep.
Transferred to Bama. Charbonnet.
He reminds me of Alvin Kamara, but with like 4.3 speed.
Yeah. Oh, Gibbs. He's awesome. Gibbs is the guy. I love Gibbs.
Yeah.
And then Charbonnet from UCLA is awesome.
That's the one I like.
But I mean, you're talking about these are all guys going to be picked in the first 2 rounds, I think. Maybe
you think Charbonnet goes in round 2?
I think
if Charbonnet's there,
high three.
If Charbonnet is there when the Niners pick in round 3, I wouldn't even be mad if they took him. I'm a huge UCLA fan, I guess. And I've seen him play a lot.
Oh, he's awesome.
I don't know. He's so hard to tackle. He's in great shape. Big dude.
Dude.
Good receiver, good blocker, can do everything.
Yeah. I mean, Charbonnet's he's a really good player. But I mean, Tyjae Spears from Tulane, 5'10", 204, really tough to bring down. Texas has another back, Roshan Johnson. So a workout warrior monster. He's 6 feet, 220. Tank Bigbie from Auburn. Really good running back. Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky, 225 pounds. Really like him. And then when you get to day 3, I mean, deep in day 3, Deuce Vaughn. He's a tiny little explosive back from K-State, but he is just awesome. And then there's others. I mean, SaRodorick Thompson from Texas Tech is a really good running back. Deneric Prince from Tulsa is about 220 pounds, really good running back. The Fresno State kid, Jordan Mims, is really solid. So, I mean, there's be guys after the draft beyond these guys. So there's a lot of good day 3 backs for sure.
The reason I'm looking at that round 3 spot is that I feel like you can't really not trust. You can't really trust Elijah Mitchell. I'm so sorry. A hell of a player, but he's gotten hurt a ton of times. And I don't know about Ty Davis Price. Like, if Trey Sermon could get cut after 1 year, I think Ty Davis Price could too. He averaged 2.9 yards per carry. So right now I'm looking at McCaffrey and Mason. Hell of a 1-2 punch. But Kyle can't help himself, and Zach Charbonnet is so good. So good. If they get him in round 3. But as you're saying, top of round 3. So, okay. What about wide receivers who could be on the Niners' radar? Because, look, there's no guarantee that Brandon Ayuk gets the long-term extension. You can't extend everyone, and he's going to be very expensive. They might have to prepare.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. This is like 3 or 4 years in a row where the wide receiver class is just exceptionally deep.
It's going to keep happening, by the way. It's going to keep happening. All the best athletes are playing this position now. It's where to get paid. Yeah. And I feel like
they,
also it's an easy position to play. Like in the NFL, all the rules are in your favor. You can't touch them. You can't hit them. It's
and
not a hard position to play compared to corner.
There's a lot of good ones too. I mean, the guys at the top of the draft, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, Smith Nabigba or whatever from Ohio State, Jalen Hyatt. Those are the guys at the top of the draft.
I like Addison.
I actually kind of like I love this. There's a receiver from Ole Miss named Jonathan Mingo, who really love him. He's 6'1", about 225. He can sky for balls. He's just physically dominating. And Ole Miss has had some really, really good wide receivers in the last few years.
DK,
I really like him.
AJ Brown. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Mingo doesn't run quite like AJ Brown, but he's an NFL player for sure. I like him, and he's a day 3 pick. Michael Wilson was one of the best receivers. The Stanford kid was one of the best receivers at Mobile. He's 6'2", 216 pounds. I think he's going to be a day 3 steal. And then, the other Stanford kid is a workout warrior, 6'3", 230, Elijah Higgins. I'm not a big Elijah Higgins fan myself. He's just a little on the stiff side. As far as, there's a kid who played at Clemson who's from Sacramento, Joseph Nada. It's spelled Ngata, Nagata.
Like Haloti Nada?
Yeah. Joseph Nada played at Clemson. And I think he either went to Jesuit or he's from Sacramento. He's a really interesting day 3 receiver. I mean, definitely. Nathaniel Dell and Jaden Reed are 2 slot receivers who are tiny. Dell, they call him Tank Dell. He caught balls for Clayton Tune at Houston. He's 5'8", 165, but he is a home run hitter. Jaden Reed from Michigan State, 5'11", slot receiver, super burner. They met with Demario Douglas from Liberty, another slot receiver, 5'8", about 170 pounds. So yeah, those are the guys that kind of stand out to me at that spot.
I like it. I was looking at one guy, Cedric Tillman, who's a 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver from Tennessee, kind of similar to Jawan Jennings. I don't know if the Niners are going to be able to keep Jawan Jennings long term. They might be looking for the next big slot receiver, just kind of like how he replaced.
I'll say
Kendrick
this:
Bourne.
A lot of people like Hendon Hooker, but at quarterback. But I don't like Hendon Hooker because I really felt like Tennessee's studs were the receivers. Hyatt and Tillman were big time for them.
Tillman might be a guy the Niners could get in round 3. All right. Last position on offense.
Yeah.
Quarterback. John Lynch said they might be in the market for a quarterback. They could go out and spend big, but I think Kyle Shanahan really likes the idea of being cheap at the quarterback position, spending everywhere else, propping up the quarterback. And based on how much success he had with rookie Brock Purdy last year, I don't think he would shy away from drafting a quarterback that he felt could play right away. So, or maybe he would just look for some long-term backups. Who are some quarterbacks you think are on the Niners' radar?
Well, Jake Haener kind of made it seem on the podium when he was interviewed like the Niners have sniffed around him. But he didn't say that he met with them directly. Clayton Tune, I think, is the guy that I like. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, really solidly built, really athletic, good arm, good mobility, probably a
experienced
round 4 pick, something like that.
The only reason I think the Niners won't go with him is I really believe that Kyle scouts the offense and not the player. And just watching Clayton Tune, he was in a spread offense. And I feel like that just,
but there's, I'll say this: there's so much spread right now that would discount an awful lot of players.
But that's how I feel about Kyle. He discounts an awful lot of players. Prove me wrong, Kyle.
Yeah,
seriously.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson said that the Niners met with him. He's intriguing. I mean, the Dorian Thompson-Robinson highlight film, you would definitely draft him. The downside of his highlight film, you wouldn't draft him because he's made he's had some, good moments, some bad moments, but I think he's interesting. I like Malik Cunningham as well from Louisville. I did a whole thing with the guy from NBC Sports, a scout, and I asked him about Cunningham. He doesn't believe Cunningham is good enough from the pocket, and he's only about 6 feet, but maybe 6'1", 185 in that range. But man, the explosive running ability, the arm strength, He demonstrated pretty good accuracy, I thought, in the All-Star games, and his running ability is dynamic. So that's a guy. So I know people who really like Adrian Martinez, who played at K-State. Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, is not mobile, but he's a pretty decent pocket passer. I'm not a Stetson Bennett guy, but I think he's too limited. But I like Tanner McKee, 6'6", but he's not very durable, and he's not very mobile, which is a bad combination. So to me, the most attractive quarterbacks are either Clayton Tune, Jake Hayner, maybe Dorian Thompson-Robinson, day 3, maybe Malik Cunningham as an undrafted guy.
I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the most intriguing. And again, if the Niners haven't totally given up on Trey Lance, then Dorian Thompson-Robinson could be a late-round pick who could do a lot of the stuff that Trey Lance does and run the same offense. And it did seem for a second like the Niners were believing in Trey and building around him, right? Like, why did you draft Danny Gray? Not for Brock. It was for Trey. It seemed like you were sort of transitioning to a more Philadelphia Eagles-style offense. So if that's not completely off the table, then do look at a guy like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And the fact that they met with him maybe does bode well for Trey Lance's future with the 49ers. Although I just don't buy it with Kyle. I think deep down he loves Tanner McKee. That's his guy. Tanner. I've watched Tanner. Here's the thing with Kyle.
Accurate.
He won't admit it, but him and his dad, they are play action scheme based coaches. And I think they feel that they've had experiences where they get a quarterback and they're like, all right, we need you to turn your back to the defense and line up under center. And he's like, ooh, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I think they feel like you can't teach a guy to do that if he doesn't want to do it. And so they need to see it on film before they're going to bring a guy in, which is why I think they didn't draft Patrick Mahomes, because he didn't do that in college. And that's why they drafted Trey Lance, because he did do that in college. Justin Fields did not. So I think Tanner McKee did it in college. He's on their radar. Aiden O'Connell.
He's a 4-star recruit, and he's a Mormon. He went on his mission, so he's older. He's a little bit more mature. He's 6'6", 230. He's really, really accurate, and he's got plenty of an arm. It's just the mobility's kind of and the durability, I don't know. But I'll say, if you're just looking for a 6'6" smart kid who's athletic, who can, throw it around, this kid can throw it. Absolutely can. Yeah. And he's very accurate.
I don't think Kyle really cares about mobility. I do, but I think what he cares about is can you line up under center, turn your back, do a play fake, and hit the 15-yard dig route over the middle. That's what he wants, right? Tanner McKee can do that. I don't know how much more he can do, but I've seen him do that on film, and that puts him right in Kyle Shanahan's wheelhouse. Stetson Bennett's another guy. And I know you're not into him, but he's accurate. He won.
He knows how to play.
And he's mobile. He's old as hell. He's 25.
He's also small.
And he just got arrested. So maybe not Stetson Bennett. Aiden O'Connell, though, he played for, Jeff Brom over at Purdue. You're looking for the next. He lined up under center. He did the stuff. I just wouldn't be surprised. I'm telling you, I watched CJ Beathard's highlight for 2 minutes in 2017. I'm like, oh, yeah, that is totally a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. Boom. Boom. I was right. So I guess I know.
I will say this about Tanner McKee. I don't know that he'd be on the board when the Niners pick. I think a lot of people feel like he's going to go in the 65 to 75 range, and I think their first pick is like 99.
See, that's crazy to me. 2 years ago, UCLA played Stanford at Stanford. I went to that game. I saw it in person. My wife wanted to go. We sat there, like right on the sideline. I saw DTR in person. I saw Tanner McKee in person. There was no question who the better quarterback was. It was DTR, and he won. So I don't understand with this Tanner McKee stuff. Is David Shaw that bad? But what I see with Tanner McKee, he looks like Mitch Wishnowsky on the field. You know what I mean? Like the jersey doesn't really fit him, and he kind of waddles around the field. Like he doesn't look like an athlete at all.
Well, and he's also worried about. I think he had he's either paranoid about skin cancer or he had skin cancer, so he never wears short sleeves. He always wears full sleeves.
Maybe that's what I'm seeing that I don't like. It's the long sleeves. It might be the long sleeves, in which case I take it back, Tanner. I'm so sorry. Manny Fresh says, bring Frank Gore Jr. here. Bloodlines. Niners are all about him. CJ Smooth says, they hyped up Jimmy to trade him. They aren't hyping up Trey, which makes me believe he's QB1 going into the season for the whole season. No clue. See what you mean. They did try to hype up Jimmy. Didn't work. Is there a second string starting right? Is there a second round starting right tackle we could trade for? Good question.
Is there a what? Second round or second string?
Second round starting right tackle. Second round.
No, but I'll tell you the underrated offensive lineman. I think it's Nick Allegretti from the Chiefs. He's 25. He's played center, guard, right guard, left guard, and right tackle. He doesn't make a lot of money. He's got the wrestling background. He was an academic All-American, played at Illinois. He's been healthy. The Chiefs have had a really good line, so he's had great coaching. I think you can get him for cheap, versatile. That's the guy I'd go invest in.
Is there anyone like the Eagles do a good job drafting like former rugby players who are 6'8", 380 pounds? Are there any Jordan Mailatas in this draft? Guys who were just freak. Because I think with offensive line, just get some freak athletes and teach them the freaking position to work with Jordan Mailata. I'm just saying, if you're good offensive line coach.
Well, there's definitely some behemoths, that's for sure. The guy Dalton Wagner from Arkansas, 6'8", 330.
I like a behemoth.
Kadeem Telfort from UAB, 6'8", 330.
Nice.
I mean, those guys are
because my thing with Mike McGlinchey was that the height is nice, but he was like 6'8", 295 a lot of the time, and it felt like he's so high cut and he really didn't have a strong base that a lot of times when he did get beat, he'd be, parallel in the air. He'd be looking bad. So I would like someone, if they're 6'8", to be a little bit, bigger, stronger, better athlete than Mike McGlinchey. Can we find that? Maybe not. Maybe that's too much to ask for.
Jones for the Buckeyes is 6'8", 360, and he's probably going to go mid-second round. And if you really loved him, you could probably turn a couple of your picks, your third-round picks, into a mid-second round pick. I mean, he played on a tremendous team.
What about bringing back Trent Brown?
They were worried about Trent Brown eating himself out of the league.
He stayed in the league. He's like 30 years old. He made it.
Yeah, he's played. Give
him a 1-year deal. Bring back Trent.
I mean, he talk about a dominant player at the point. My God.
He's hella good.
He has always been good.
I've always liked him. Now, he probably only plays 4 games a season. I think he played a lot last year, but it was a contract year. Hard to give him a 1-year deal with incentives. Trent Brown, that's what I say. He's better than Mike McGlinchey. Always has been, always will be. Sorry, Mike. Not that
Mike's going to get paid. I don't think Mike's too worried.
That's going to be the worst contract of the offseason. But I don't even need to go there. I wish him all the best, especially because he recommended D'Alessandro's to me, and that place was good, I got to say. That was one hell of a cheesesteak. That's what I'm always going to remember Mike McGlinchey for. Cheesesteak recommendations.
Cheesesteak
Thank
referral.
You, Mike. Yeah. All right, Larry, you are the hardest working man in the game right now. You are the James Brown of
I don't know about that, man.
creators.
I got a little bit of laryngitis earlier this week.
You're talking too much.
God,
You're working too much.
My wife's like, I've never heard your voice go out like that. I'm like, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Grinding.
Are you
done
doing
for
a
the day?
live stream? And I'm like, I got to call it quits, man. It's unbelievable.
Are you done for the day? Or are you going to keep going?
No. I get another live stream later today and more Niner talk. I had Ryan Hensley on earlier today.
He's great.
So, by the way, I went so long that I was late for this, and I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. Who are you going on with later?
The great Vish Kumaran.
Oh, I love Vish. Tell him I say what's up. Yeah, I just talked to him on the phone the other day. Tell him I say hello. Yeah, he's great.
I will. I think there's a lot of people that would love to hear the two of you guys reunite.
I bet we will one day. I bet we
Seriously.
will.
Maybe I gotta. Should I engineer that sometime? I mean, can I trick you into coming on?
Vish and I talk like weekly.
But I mean, can I book Vish and then just book you on the side, and then all of a sudden it's like you're there, and then I just slip out the side. Let you guys.
I think if me and Vish do it, it'll have to be like a Netflix special. We'll have to really play that.
Yeah, you need bigger money. You need a sponsor.
But no, I'm sure it's going to be a great show. Make sure everyone goes over to Larry's channel. Subscribe to Larry. Subscribe to Vish. Have a great show. Thanks for coming on, Larry.
Thanks, man. Always good.